Zordon from the big hit Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. How did Power Rangers just get slapped right into your hands?
Actually shaved your head for that?
Hello, hello, hello. What is going on, everyone? Guys, I have a very special guest for everyone tonight. Let's give a big welcome and big hello. Hey, look, we got David J. Fielding here, who plays Zordon from the big hit in the 90s, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Say hello to everyone, Zordon.
Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well.
Look, David, throughout this live discussion, can I call you Zordon? Is that all right? Let's talk about the virus. What's been going on with you? How are you?
I'm good. I was out of the country when it really started to take off, so I was a little worried about getting back. But when we got back, we actually came through pretty quickly and pretty smoothly. I self-quarantined for 10 days after that, and luckily so far, myself, all of my family members, as far as I know, all of my friends, as far as I know, have been passed over or are keeping safe. So it's really wild to see this kind of thing in my lifetime. 100 years ago, we had the influenza pandemic and all that kind of stuff. So it just all depends on how people handle it,
So how old were you in the 90s?
I was 29 when I filmed the role of Zordon.
So what was the audition process like, or just how did Power Rangers just get slapped right into your hands?
A friend of mine who was working on the production team, Stacy Fish, she called me up and she said, "Would you like to audition for this role that we're shooting?" And I was like, well, that's the entire reason I moved to LA, was to try to make it in film and TV. I expected to go down to the Saban building and it would be like any other cattle call that you've heard about, where you go down, there are 15,000 guys, you read your lines in front of a camera, and then you go home and you never hear anything. But when I got down to the Saban building, I found out it was just me and another gentleman. He went in first and did his bit for about 20 minutes, and then I walked in the room and I met the director, the producers. I met the original cast for the pilot, and they had me stand up on a table, and I basically used the voice that we used in the show. And I remember Austin St. John saying, "Well, I think we found our Zoltar," and that was that. It was a bolt of lightning. I mean, it was one of those instances where you realize that a number of factors, all lined up correctly for me to walk through those doors that afternoon. So, I mean, all those things came together at the right moment.
During the whole process, of auditioning and then shooting, did you and the team ever think it would get that big, become such a big franchise?
Personally, myself, I didn't. The other guys were a lot closer because they only filmed my character one time and then recycled that footage over and over, much like the Japanese footage that they were using over and over. I felt very separated from the rest of the cast because they were off on set. They were doing outdoor shoots, and I would just go in and be in a dark room, and I never really, and didn't really see them again until 2014 when we met up at a convention.
But remember the show, correct? I mean, I was a huge fan. I mean, I remember, part of my day was, you go to school, then come home, and then you watch Power Rangers. That was my childhood. Every day at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock, right after school. And I remember just growing up with that franchise, and just, we all wanted to be, the Tommy or Jason, or, the girls, they always wanted to be the Pink Ranger or Yellow Ranger. I actually watched a couple of episodes just to, bring back the
nostalgia.
Nostalgia, to go down memory lane. As a kid, you're not thinking of it. But when you watch the show now as an adult, you see the structure of how, all right, well, there's the villain, and then there's the teenagers, and then there's the shot of, Rita, who clearly cannot speak proper English, or wasn't speaking English.
It was formulaic. It was made for 5 to 8-year-olds, and it was very colorful. It was very repetitious. There was a formula to it, and that's, it was all geared towards making sure that people went out and bought those toys and did everything they wanted to do to be a Power Ranger show.
Yeah. A question that I wanted to ask you is, when the Power Rangers, when they would go into battle, when they would get hit or when they would get shot at, they would have these explosions, all on their chest and in their helmets and everything. Do you know how they made that work?
I can take a real educated guess. I'm assuming it was some sort of squib, little blood packets, so when people get shot, blood spurts in the air or whatever. It's triggered off camera by some electrician or special effects person, I'm pretty sure that the suits had that sort of effect, but instead of blood, of course, it was either smoke or sparks or something to that effect.
Do you have any collectibles or toys?
I've been lucky enough to have been gifted a number of toys. Funko still hasn't made an official Zordon pop, so I've got a number of people who have donated. I did pick up a couple of the Lightning figures that came out, but I only picked up the ones that I really enjoy, like Goldar.
Do you have any episode favorites?
The first episode is always a favorite because that's the first time that my character calls them Power Rangers for the first time. It's the first time the world is introduced to them. I like that episode because Zordon gives them the choice. You can do this or you can choose not to. And the fact that they walk away at the beginning and then accept the mantle of hero and then come back. I think that's a great lesson for kids. And that was one of the great things about the character of Zordon is that he never really interfered with the Rangers. He would give them advice, he would support them and encourage them, but he never stepped in their way. He never took over for them. He said, you're the ones who can do this. I trust in you and I believe in you. And I think that's very unique. So I think that's one of my favorite episodes. Green with Evil is a great sequel, even though Zordon is not in it, except for the first and last episode.
I was always wondering, like, is the villain going to win this time? Or is it the Rangers going to win? And, about like 90% of the time, the Power Rangers won it. And there was those few episodes where, the villain would, win. And there would be like a part 1 or part 2, like the whole Tommy series. He was winning. That was actually the series that I watched this past weekend. It was a 4-part series, and towards the end of each episode, it was always the bad guy winning, and then until the end. One of the fans asked this past weekend when I was promoting the show, we were having a debate. The reason why Zordon gave the Rangers the power coins is because Zordon was a Power Ranger, right?
When we did the TV show in 1993, that information didn't exist.
Okay.
The only information I was given in 1992 when we shot the pilot was that you're a 10,000-year-old wizard and you're trapped in a time warp. That's it.
I watched the movie this weekend too. I went all 90s this weekend, and it's funny. It's actually even funnier is because ironically, the day before we scheduled this, I ended up buying like fruit roll-ups and Gushers, and I haven't had that stuff in like years, and I just decided to buy some this past week. So this weekend, it consisted of me watching the Power Rangers movie and the series and eating fruit roll-ups, and I felt like I was like 10 years old again.
That's awesome.
Oh man, you weren't in the movie, correct? Because I was trying to match the actors' names and everything, but
right. I had been contacted when the movie was being prepped for when they were going to shoot in LA. I had moved back to the East Coast. I was living in Pittsburgh at the time and doing voice work and acting for commercials and video games, but I wasn't out in LA. That's why Zordon in the movie doesn't look anything like Zordon from the TV show. They look completely different.
Yeah, they looked very, very different. Towards the later years, the actors that played the Red Ranger, the Black Ranger, and the Yellow Ranger were replaced, correct?
Yeah, decided to leave the show because they felt that they were not being compensated well enough. Considering that, the show made $1 billion the first year and these guys were making a little over $600 every 2 weeks. I mean, their leverage and their rights was really sort of out of their hand. That decision, was made by them, and they felt that they deserved that,
So what you said earlier, that's an interesting fact about the revenue that the Power Rangers generated. So who owned the rights to the Rangers? So was it Saban?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, and it generated almost up to like $1 billion the first year that it was, that it was aired?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The merchandising, the toys, the music rights, all that stuff generated $1 billion for those guys.
And they were paying the actors that played the teenagers $600 every 2 weeks, which at the time, I mean, I don't know if that's a lot at the time. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot for the amount of money that it was generating for the company.
It was minimum wage. It was minimum wage job. And like I said, I made less than $1,000 on the show. So
wow. That's interesting, because sometimes people don't get the actual logistics and how it works on the inside with productions and everything. People just see like, oh, this guy's famous or they're famous. Look at this show for 10 years and, buttloads of money and everything. When in reality is, it takes a lot to, to produce, a high quality show.
Well, I mean, that's sort of the structure of the society we live in. You know, everything flows up, and
Yeah.
there's only room at the top for like one or two guys. And Saban was the guy at the top. You know, you have to give him credit for the business savvy of knowing that this thing was going to be huge and just getting it done and getting it out there. On one hand, you could get really angry about how much money went one way and how much money went another way.
Yeah.
But overall, the impact on the pop culture landscape was really sort of a seismic shift at that point. You had a superhero show with color coordinated characters that could be anybody under the suits. And it was, for the 90s, it was a very diverse cast. They broke down a number of barriers, and that's something to be really proud of, to be a part of something that did that sort of thing and was also very positive. The messages that were put out about standing up for your friends, standing together with your friends, and, to stand up against bullies and all that kind of stuff. Very, very positive message. Whenever we do conventions, whenever we interface with the fans and stuff, we hear over and over how the show helped people through some really troubling, tough times and forget about the troubles of the world for a while. So I think that's really a very nice and positive thing, and I'm very happy to be a part of that.
Is the voice over pre-recorded and then added to the acting scenes?
Well, they would shoot the episode. That footage would be playing on a screen, and I would stand in front of it with a microphone. The voices are sort of recorded at the time that the episode is being put together. It's not like I was sent a script and recorded voices in a blank room and then just sent them off. No, we were actually there watching it when it happened.
Did he have any specific episode that was his favorite to film?
Well, I only filmed one episode, so that has to be my favorite.
There was only one episode.
It was a fun time doing that, and because it was done on the cheap, rather than do a lot of special effects, they didn't have motion capture back then. For me, was what they call chroma key. It was a big green screen. They slathered me with green paint, and they shaved all my hair off. They didn't give me a bald head wig or anything like that. I remember some of the actors, being like, "You actually shaved your head for that? That's nuts!" And I was like, "Well, what? It was my first real sort of, job in front of a camera in Hollywood." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? Hair grows back."
Yeah. How did it feel to be in the tube thing as Zordon?
It was very nice. It's a very spa-like environment. It's very warm. It's like, floating in a nice ocean. It was very nice. I enjoyed it. I wish I could go back sometimes.
How did he feel about leaving the show as a voice at the end of season 1?
I actually left through the middle of season 1. My last episode as the voice of Zordon was Calamity Kimberly, which I think is episode 31. A man by the name of Robert Manahan took over for the voice after that point, who I never got to meet, unfortunately.
David, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us for this little convo and Q&A. All right, make sure you follow him on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and follow Mr. Humanity Gibbs.